Hello, everyone, and welcome to Talk About It. My name is Sage Breed. I'm here with my wonderful, amazing, super hot, super sexy wife. Hey, it's Shelby Breed,
I
everyone.
said, where? I'm just kidding.
Oh, man. Y'all, I am excited. We are excited. We're grateful that you have decided to share your time, sitting down, have a conversation with us. Man, it's a blast. We're going to go ahead and just cover things, but to kick it off, Talk About It is a place where we do a recap of the things that we talked about this week. And we just even share some thoughts, questions, insight. If you guys have questions, we'll answer them, things like that. It is really just a place where we can just, man, just relax. You know, life is really fast paced.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, y'all, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna jump in. So this week we were talking about sacrifice. We've been going through our 5 pillars. This is our first one. We got spiritual, mental, physical, social, and financial. We already went ahead and we did the whole 5 weeks. We're hitting a repeat, building upon the foundation that we already laid. So we're back on it with spiritual. We're looking at sacrifice. So on Monday at Growth Track, we talked about going ahead and paying what it cost. What is it? It's your vision. The things that you need to be successful, you need to go ahead and master it. Don't try and be a jack of all trades, because when somebody needs something done, they don't hire a jack of all trades. They hire a specialist. They hire problem solvers. People look for those that produce, and producers get rewarded, while those who only consume, they get taken advantage of most times. And so go ahead and pay what it costs. On Tuesday during Vision Board, we talked about how success demands a sacrifice. You're going to have to sacrifice. You know, there's this quote: if you keep doing what you've always done, you'll have what you've always had.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just one of those things of, man, learning makes you feel dumb, but it's actually making you smarter. Exercising makes you feel weak, it's actually making you stronger. Investing in yourself makes you feel like, dude, I'm poor, I'm in a bad spot. However, it's actually giving you that freedom. So are you willing to make that investment into yourself? And that's a question that Shelby and I have had to ask ourselves a lot, especially in this past year. Wednesday, we took a look at Back to the Book. And this one was a little bit like, what the? Because we were talking about circumcision. But really we were focusing in on the covenant of success. God gave Abraham a promise. And he said, hey, it's not going to come free. You have to be distinctly marked. You have to be in a place where when people see you, they recognize something's missing. When people see you, right, I'm not going to get into the whole nitty gritty. I mean, whatever. Ask your mom, your dad, your guardian, whatever. But it's going in with that mentality of circumcising is cutting off the part that holds the filth, cutting off the part that holds the dirt. And it's sensitive, so it hurts. But it's marking and saying, okay, I have now set myself apart. And how Abraham was 99 when he was circumcised, how his son was 13, and when God told him, they did it that day. And not only that, Abraham went through his whole household, all the males in his house. And they allowed him to do that. So having not just for yourself, but is the community around you trusting you to that level of saying, hey, I'm going to give you something sensitive, and I'm going to trust you're really not going to jack me up. I'm going to trust that, like, you're really not going to hurt me past what it already hurts. Because the fact is, it's not like Abraham had a history of circumcising people. He'd only circumcised himself, his son. And so I'm sure by the time he got to the 300 person, he he figured out some stuff. And it started to go a lot better. So understand that, man, this covenant of success, there's going to be some learning curves. There's going to be some times where you unintentionally hurt somebody, where you unintentionally hurt yourself. But are you willing to commit? And that leads us into what we talked about Thursday, where Hunter and I really went through that discussion of, man, was this worth it? Was it worth it? Was that sacrifice you made worth it? Was that thing, whether you get up early in the morning or you committed, I'm going to read a book a month, whether you've decided, okay, I'm going to have an accountability, whether you say, okay, I'm going to go ahead and have 5 minutes of prayer time or devotional time. Is this really getting the result that you're looking for? Because something that actually Shelby and I were talking about today when we were driving in the car towards Dallas was like, you've only been doing this for a month. You don't know if this works. Right? And we were talking about some of the stuff that we've been doing here online. We don't know if it's working. It's only been 6 weeks. There's some things that we've been doing for 6 months. We don't know if it's working. It's only been 6 months. And a lot of times we're looking at certain things and we're like, why isn't it happening now? It should be a lot faster than that. But it's like, bro, you just started. You just started. Relax. You don't know if it's working yet. However, there are certain benchmarks based on what you have seen in the world and community around you, from the mentors, from the community. Okay, this is a good benchmark. By this time, this should be here. By this time, this should be here. And so just even something that has really been resonating as we finish that recap and we're diving in just to actually talking about it. Something that God has really been hitting me with recently was just when people ask me for, Sage, what do you want prayer for? I'll pause and I'll say, God, what do I need prayer for? You know, most of the time I don't answer like, oh, pray for, I don't know. So I'm like, God, what do I need prayer for? And most of the time it's stuff I'm not even thinking about. Here I am thinking, oh, I need prayer for strength. And God's like, no, you need prayer for gentleness. No, you need prayer for power. No, you need prayer for, and I'm like, whoa. Anyway. And so one of my buddies had said, hey, Sage, what can I pray with you about? And I was like, God, what do I need prayer for? And I believe that God was like, power. You need prayer for power. And I said, okay, power. And we're having this conversation, and this was on Tuesday. And it was one of those things where, man, things started picking up really fast. And even like today, I have just been feeling completely depleted, like physically. And I just want to crash out and go to sleep. Not like crash out and start spazzing out, but just like, man, get cuddled up in my bed and just, you know. So a question I want to ask you, babe, because, man, you have accomplished a lot. You've gone through a lot. You've grown a lot. Even just going back and having conversations with people and being like, whoa, I've grown. Or looking in the mirror and you go, okay, this is actually who I am. When you think about sacrifices and seeing how much you have grown, what is one of the things that you've had to sacrifice that you didn't think it was going to be as painful as it really is?
That I didn't think it was going to be as painful as it really was?
Mm-hmm.
It's actually pretty difficult. I feel like it's a difficult question because I tend to be an overthinker. So my brain naturally assumes that things are going to hurt. I'll say I think, honestly, I think learning to steward the emotions that God has given me and learn to deny my own quote unquote like emotional satisfaction. I think, because I feel like you can assume it would be painful, but I don't think you can fully know the extent to which it can be painful till you actually go through it. And it's just like telling yourself like, man, I really want to throw a fit right now, or man, I really want to let myself spiral with this anxiety or fear that I'm feeling in this situation. And just like whoever's affected by it, like who cares, whatever. And just having to tell yourself, like, no, you're not going to do that. Or it feels like you're depriving your own self from what would be satisfying to you. And I know for me, I kind of got used to really just playing into whatever emotion I was feeling at the time and letting that rule what I would do for the day or whatever. But I realized, like, I was really robbing myself of good days and good things. And I realized that I truly was hurting myself. And, sometimes I was in the mood to punish myself in a way, like emotionally, and be like, well, you deserve to have a terrible day. Like I've definitely thought thoughts like that before. I know I'm not the only one who's ever thought that. And I've kind of made this internal pact with myself to be like, we're not doing that. Or if we do find ourselves emotionally in that place, quickly retreat, like being like, okay, well, you've been here for 30 minutes. It's time to like get out of it because you can't stay here because it's not a good place for you. And it's just, I think that has been really hard, learning to steward my emotions, like learning to not allow myself to always be emotionally satisfied in the way that my flesh wants to be. I think that has been something that has been excruciating, honestly, because it's like saying no. You actually have to do the harder work, which is processing why you're feeling that way. And that is 10 times scarier than playing into whatever emotion you're feeling. So I think for me, that has been really big lately, but I've seen myself grow a lot. Like I used to kind of like on days when I was struggling, just kind of put myself in a room and be like, okay, well, I'm not going to do anything except for just kind of quote unquote rot the whole day and just think about how much I'm not, I'm sucking or not doing what I want to be doing or whatever. And it's like now I have way more of a tendency to go for a walk or to actually pray about it or to sit and be like, okay, well, why am I feeling this way? What's triggering? What am I feeling triggered about? And so, yeah, I think that's been the biggest thing lately. That one of the biggest things lately that I've been kind of processing and noticing in myself.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. When it comes to identifying certain emotional triggers or things of being like, okay, we're not going to do this way anymore, how do you reconcile that within yourself without feeling like, and I get like sometimes we go back and being like, is this really me, or like, oh, I'm just pretending, but how do you reconcile within yourself, no, this is actually gross?
I think sometimes, I think honestly for me, how I reconcile and like actually acknowledge the fact that it's growth is I have to step outside of myself and almost think in a way of like I'm almost like taking care of another person even though I'm taking care of myself. And I think for me, realizing what my limitations were and not being okay with it in the sense of, oh, I don't want to grow anymore, but realizing, oh, this is like my threshold. Like I can't handle more than this right now. Okay, cool. I acknowledge I can't handle more than this right now. That's okay. How can I safely push against that limit in a safe environment to where I can actually break through and grow to a different and higher level and grow? So I think for me, I had to really acknowledge, like I think I was in denial. I felt like I went through like the 5 stages of grief with myself.
Real.
I'd be in that constantly where I'm just like, why are you like this? But I think I just had to be like, I had to like get out of that denial and be like, oh wait, no, like this is actually like where I'm at. I haven't emotionally matured past a 5-year-old in this specific little area of my life. And it's just like, okay, I have to take care of that 5-year-old. Like, I have to take care of this person. And so for me, it was just being like, this is where we are. Suck it up. Like, let your pride's going to take a hit, but, you gotta just let it. And I'm not saying that's easy. Sometimes I suck at that, but just letting yourself be like, well, this is where I am, and then formulating a plan to grow through it. Like we always use the example of the gym, but it's like having a partner, and like this is where I'm so grateful for you, but having someone who I can fail with, because it's like if I'm squatting and he knows like, hey, this is kind of Shelby's threshold weight, he's right behind me ready to catch me if I fall. And I think too, just communicating that to your people, being like, hey, like this is like, I struggle with this, but I don't want to struggle with this. It's like, okay, well, how can we together, I don't know. It makes me think of bowling when you put up the bumpers or whatever, and learning to go in a straight line until the bumpers can come down and you can kind of go in a straight line without, you know, without having to have bumpers. Yeah. You're still going to get gutter balls sometimes, but overall, if you practice, like you're going to eventually be able to hit all the pins. And so that's just what came to my mind. I'm a visual thinker, so.
Yeah, that's a good visual.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good visual. I think something that, while you were talking, the image that came to my mind was the idea, not so much of the actual action itself, but of Abraham circumcising everyone in his house. Mm-hmm. And him being the leader of his home, doing that to himself first, which one, I guess I don't exactly comprehend. I'm not necessarily going to look up YouTube videos of it. Of like circumcising yourself, because in my mind I'm like, are you not still bleeding? Right? Like, I don't know, but it's like he did that, then he went to his son, and then imagine breaking that conversation to the first person, like, hey, we went ahead and got our private part and just sliced it because Yahweh made a covenant. This isn't that his household's first introduction with Yahweh. They've seen his power already. But them being like, yeah, I trust you. You do it. Not even like, I'm going to do it. But Abraham, I trust you to do this to me. Go ahead and take this, hold it, and cut it. That's crazy to me. And it's like, I'm thinking of, that person we're having a conversation about on the drive home, and even just before the pod, of being like, have we presented ourselves to be that safe environment where they're like, hold this sensitive part of me and cut it? Opposed to, like, because it's easy for me to be upset at a person, or me to be frustrated or annoyed, because that defers responsibility, for me at least. Instead of me taking all the responsibility and say, have I even cultivated the ground or the environment enough to show you can trust me with this? And it's one of those things where I think for me, that's the sacrifice, because I've said this on here and I've shared this with you, where, I enjoy feeling angry. Like, that emotion just makes me feel good.
Yeah.
And that's a dangerous emotion if it's not wielded properly and appropriately. And you had said this word in the car, of gentle. You cannot be gentle if you're weak, because then you're just weak.
Yeah.
You can only be gentle if you're strong. And it's one of those things of, how am I using my strength?
Yeah.
And so I think that just really, that's a sacrifice for me, because I think sometimes I want to be upset at people. I think sometimes, in my opinion, I think they deserve it, obviously. But it's even just sitting down as I've listened through Numbers, and I'm about halfway through Joshua, and it's like, dude, Moses freaking went through it.
Yeah.
Like, he said, God, like, did I give birth to all these people?
Real?
No. God, did I deliver them like by my own hand? No.
Mm-hmm.
So why are you punishing me? What did I do? Why did you give all these people to me to take care of? He said, God, uh, if I've really disobeyed you and I've been just so bad, I can understand. But it's just like, I'm not calling you, Callie. I was calling my dog. She started exploring places she wasn't supposed to be in.
Mm-hmm. Go into the room.
Love you. Bye. But I'm sitting here, I'm thinking about Moses as he's saying this to God. And he's like, God, if I found any favor in your eyes, take me now. And,
Oof.
and God's like, what? Like, God's like, let me give you some perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And then we see Joshua going through something similar and how this is his first position in leadership. And he goes into Jericho and, it falls down and everyone in the whole land is like terrified of Joshua.
Mm-hmm.
Is what the Bible, like, they're scared, but the Israelites have no context to that.
Mm-hmm.
They think they're scared of them. But in reality, everyone's like, no way. Because Jericho was one of the strongest cities in the area and just fell.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get the city of Ai, the second battle, and Israel gets whooped because they had stolen some stuff that God had said to get rid of. And so Joshua goes before the Lord and he goes, God, like, did you really just bring us out here to win one time and then like get whooped? Because now when people hear that we were so easily defeated by Ai, they're gonna come and just take us out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, then what are you gonna do about your name? And the Bible says Joshua was on his floor, crying before God, and God's like, get up, stop crying. Somebody disobeyed me. And this way they know that I know this is what we're gonna do. Get the whole nation. All at this time it was around like 1,000,000. All 1,000,000 of them. And I'm gonna tell you what tribe it was, the house it was, the house meaning like what family, like we're the Breed family. And then I'm gonna tell you which person it was. And what you are gonna do is burn them alive and everything they own. And I'm sitting here like, yo, that's
so fun.
I'm like, that's crazy work. And we can get into that theological thing later. But I'm sitting here and I'm like, yo. And the guy, I mean, he was like, yup, I did it. Yup, I'm sorry, I got your loved ones killed. Yup, it was actually all my fault. But they took him, they wiped his name off the earth. He has no lineage left.
It's crazy.
And then they go into Ai, and I'm telling the story because the thing that was really standing out to me was the sacrifices that had to be made.
Mm.
There's a sacrifice when it comes to leadership and leading people, and ultimately we must lead ourselves first.
Mm.
It's like, if I'm incapable of leading my own self, then I'm definitely not capable of leading my family, and I'm certainly not capable of leading others. And so I'm sitting there with the Lord, and I'm like, God, I don't know what the heck I'm doing.
Real.
And I think for me, that's the sacrifice that I have to make, because I only do what I've seen the Father do and what I've heard him say, and I only say what I hear the Father say to the best of my ability. Mm-hmm. Now, there are plenty of times where I've not done that, but it's one of those things where it's like, okay, well, I'm trying. So when it comes to like, because we did the vision map, right? And mine was expanding the territories, and yours was in inspiring hope. And it's even just going through the different things, because it's hard to do something if you've never felt what it was like to not have it. Meaning, like, it's hard to inspire hope if I don't know what it feels like in the disparity of feeling hopeless is.
Yeah.
I'm not able to expand and enlarge territories and impact people if I don't know what it's like to have things taken from me.
Yeah.
If I don't know what it's like to feel like I'm being encroached on, because then I'm able to fight on their behalf.
Yeah.
I'm able to pray on their behalf. So I think even just a question for you, love, is like, when it comes to the things that you believe God has called you to and that we believe that God has called you to, and you think about what that demands, I think of Jesus Christ, Garden of Gethsemane, Father, take this cup from me, however, let your will be done. You can go as deep as you want, share as little as you want. Just with that thought, though, what are some things that you have felt like, God, let this cup pass from me, bro? Like, I don't want this. I don't want to do it. However, if you're asking me to do it and you're like, no, like you really need to do it, I'll do it. I'm not going to like it, though, but I'm going to do it. What has been a moment where you have felt that you're willing to share? And if not, you can just say, let me process that and we can share it another time.
I'm thinking. I think for a long, like, for my whole life, really, I have just kind of sensed God oftentimes asking me to give up things or to grow in a certain area, to do certain things. And I would see other believers doing what God was asking me to give up. And I don't want to make it sound like I'm like some quote unquote chosen one, or some like I'm different than every other believer. Like
she was a different girl.
She's a simple girl. But I think, and just as I've grown older, and even just like marrying you and our life in the direction that we're headed, I think I kind of again was in this like place of like denial for a long time, like of just things that God was asking me to grow in and do. I'm like, should I share that? I'm like praying in my head.
You take your time.
I'll summarize it with like a little story that kind of confirms what I'm saying. Like I've felt this way for a while. Like there are just quote unquote certain things God wouldn't let me do or get away with without feeling conviction. And I was like, God, like this is stupid. Why can I not listen to that song without feeling convicted? It's just the Lumineers or like whatever. Not that was a random example. Not that I feel necessarily convicted listening to the Lumineers, but anyway. I had a prophetic word spoken over me once where a woman told me that I wouldn't be able to get away with things that other believers, other necessarily like women who believed in God, would be able to get away with. And I am hesitant to share that because it's just, I don't want it to sound like I'm trying to be like this holier than thou, or like some like, let me toot my own horn because how holy I am. Because when I tell you, I heard that and I was like, God, I feel like I'm the last person who should have that, because I want to do not that. I just want to chill. I feel like that was a time where I was like, Lord, sanctification's hard and it's already hard enough. Even just being like certain types of people that I'm drawn to minister to, I'm like, God, why this person? Why am I drawn to this person? Why? Annoying. But it's just like you'd be like, no, you go talk to that person. I'm like, God, please stop. Or even just telling me, like, again, going along with the theme of like the gentleness and everything, there are so many moments when I just want to be the sassiest, most rude, most Bible thumping, like, what is wrong with you, to people. And God is like, you're not going to do that. Instead, you're going to tell them how much I love them. And then I'm like, okay. But then I like think about myself. And half the time, the reason I'm so angry at the person for whatever is going on, or I'm so annoyed, is because I relate. I was that person at one point. And so usually God would be like, you just see yourself in that person. That's why you're acting away. And I'm like, oh, okay, you're right. Okay. And so, yeah, those are some areas where I'm just like, God. And even just the calling, this is real. If anyone's married in this, they'll get this. But like when your spouse has like a calling of some kind, and then you marry that person. Well, I said spouse already. And you get married to someone anyway. Obviously, your callings are like together, and so just having to you being like in certain scenarios, like, man, I really feel like God's telling me to do this, and I'm like, I didn't hear God telling me to do that, but because I'm your wife, like I have to do it. And it's so like I'd be annoyed sometimes. I can't lie. I get annoyed, but then I'm like, you know what, God, I'm not even gonna waste my time being annoyed. I'm just gonna do it, get it over with. And so yeah, those are some things. Well, I was long winded, but yeah.
Yeah, that's. Thank you for sharing that, because it highlights one, real people, with real emotions, and then perhaps somebody needed to hear that because they needed permission. They needed permission to be able to be like, oh, I can feel that way. I can really like talk to God like that. I can really have those kind of conversations. Yes, you can.
Yes.
And that's what we're hoping, and what this place is, this space is have those conversations. Because it is a challenge, bro. It is one of those things where it's like, gosh darn.
Frick.
Yeah. Just frick it all, right? And it's like, man, because we're hitting these pillars, and we need to take a serious look and ask ourselves. I was having a conversation with someone today. I said, you don't know what you believe until that thing gets tested. All you know is that's what you want to believe.
That's true.
But what do you actually believe?
That's true.
And it's like, I don't know if this person's going to be by my side until we're in a place where they have an opportunity to leave. I don't know if God is really going to come through for me until that's the only option.
Yeah.
I don't know anything until it happens. And so everything else is just, man, I sure hope so.
Yeah.
I would like so.
Yeah.
And to sit there, because, man, when we talk about, man, you got to pay what it costs. If you want to be at a certain level, if you want to have a homeostasis in your mind, well, then you're going to have to pay the price of meditating. Meditate on God's word day and night. Meditate. Journal. Meditate. Get an audio log. Meditate. Talk to people. Meditate. You're going to have to pay that price. Because personally, I don't wrestle with anxiety. I don't wrestle with depression, although I used to the point where I was suicidal. And I don't anymore because I had to pay that price.
Yeah.
And so I don't allow my loved ones to try and get it on discount.
Yeah.
Like, we're not going to get the Walmart version of peace.
Period.
Because the Walmart version of peace has a bunch of fillers and additives in it.
I'm trying to have that Central Market.
Yeah, and no diss on Walmart. But it's just one of those things of like, oh, well, you get what you pay for. If you try to get it, and Hunter and I talked about this, where we're feeling that frustration when, your friends or your family know you have a business and they ask you for a discount. It's like, are you kidding me? Like, I'm doing this and you're asking me for a discount? Wow.
Yeah.
Or like, even like on the flip side, we see our friends and loved ones doing things, and then we go and ask them for a discount.
I've been there.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, well, they're my friend. Yeah, they are.
So you want to support them even more.
Yeah, and it's like, I was telling him how, like, When I know my friends do business, I do my best if I'm able to pay them more.
Yeah.
Like when we're still working on the shirts, the contract still stands, and we're gonna have to redo that whole contract with Stevie. But like when Stevie designed the shirts for us for Growth Track, right? I'm not gonna go ahead and paint everything out, but like I did my best to go above and beyond my means, in the sense of, man, I appreciate what you do, and because we're friends, I want to give you a good deal
Mm-hmm.
for you. Like obviously for me, because business is business,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like I don't want to take advantage,
Yeah.
because then it's like, wow, is that really what I think of this friendship? Is that really how I value this?
Mm-hmm.
Man, I know you're my friend, so does that mean I'm just gonna emotionally dump every time I see you? Man, I know you're my friend. Does that mean that I'm gonna constantly ask you for rides in the car and never give you gas money without you having to ask me for it?
Mm-hmm.
Man, I know you're my friend. Does that mean like, so pay what it costs?
Mm-hmm.
Don't don't ask yourself and be like, man, well, what can I get for the low? I mean, you really shouldn't do that in general. There's a difference between being frugal and being stingy.
Yeah.
But just having that moment and being like, our soul was so valuable to God. He said the only thing that could possibly pay for this is my own life.
Mm-hmm.
And so he came here on earth as a man, fully God, fully man, died for our sins, rose again, and bought our life back.
Yeah.
And when I think about that, why in the world am I trying to get a discount with God?
Mm-hmm.
It's like Jesus suffered many things, and he goes, I suffered. You're my disciple. That means you're going to suffer. Why am I begging and asking God for no suffering?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He goes, if you're not willing to suffer for me, you're not worthy of me. And so it's like I equate these things to a race where, I've won a lot of races where before I used to think I was a loser because I didn't even win a freaking bingo. I just I'd never won a game of
Nothing.
bingo
Yeah.
in my life. In my life, I'm like, yo, this is rigged. I'm like, I've lived almost 3 decades and I've never won a single game of bingo. What is happening? Anyway, but it was just one of those things of like when I started winning races, I didn't start to win until I realized who's willing to pay the price of pain.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not willing to pay the price of pain, you do not deserve to win. The only thing you deserve is to lose. And those are the conversations that I have between God and I, and those are the conversations I have between myself and my loved ones. It's like, if you're not willing to pay the price of pain, maybe we need to have a different discussion if this is really the path you want to take.
Mm-hmm.
Because everybody's willing to hurt for something.
Yeah.
But have we taken the time to address what it is?
Mm-hmm.
So as we land this plane, love, what is one thing that somebody needs to hear? Perhaps they're feeling like, I'm scared to put this sacrifice before the Lord. I'm scared to give this up. I'm just scared. Like, I'm sure this is really going to help me. And right now, because of the trauma, my brain is literally blocking me from seeing the future. What would you say to that person?
That's so funny. I was literally like, I feel like God's telling me to say something. But so I think I'll say this to the person watching. Um, Sage can be extremely like it can be intense what he says, and trust me, I know like first freaking hand. I'm his wife, so I get it. I get it. And it's just like I sometimes feel like we're like polar opposites in the sense of I can be extremely tend to, struggle with anxiety, or I can tend to want to overthink or whatever. I have those temptations, right? I'm not saying that that's who I am. I don't claim that. But am I tempted frequently with those things? Yes, absolutely. And even just like when Sage, like, I feel like the environment that I kind of was surrounded with before I got married was extremely comfortable and comfy and just do what makes you feel comfortable. And then Sage is just not about that. And it was like a whole new world. And I share that to say, like, I just recently have been learning how to pay what it costs. And to the person watching who's just like, man, like, I could never, like, I am freaking having a panic attack just listening to this episode. Because trust me, I've been there. I've listened to podcasts and I'm like, I can't, too convicting. Um, and it's like, leaning into pain is not something that you just do after you've not been doing that for forever. Just like you don't go to the gym and all of a sudden squat 400 pounds. Nobody's doing that. And I think God understands that. Just like, I mean, the easiest example is like, we don't, as humans, we can't even handle the full weight of our sin. If God were to reveal our sinfulness to us in a moment, we would be crushed. And so to the person who's like, man, I could never do what Sage is talking about, like paying the price and paying what it costs, like, I want to tell you that you can. As someone who thought that I never could pay the cost or pay what it costs. And it's just like there is literally hope for you. And I would say, as hard as it is, have that like conversation with the Lord, because he's never going to ask you to do what you aren't able to with him. If you try to do it alone, you probably won't be able to do it. But if you do it with him, you'll be able to. I'm not saying it's going to be easy or comfortable, but you can do it. And don't listen to that lie that says that you can't change the way that you think, or you can't do it because you can. If I can do it, you can definitely do it. Sage is extremely hardcore, and I don't know the version of him that's not that way. So I can't like be like, yeah, when you were 16, you were just different. Like, we met 2 freaking years ago. Like, I only know like hardcore Sage, right? And like, it's beautiful how God has like freaking transformed him. And thank the Lord that I only know this version, because I probably couldn't have handled the other one. But
I couldn't have handled the other one.
I mean,
because I didn't.
Period. But it's just like, as I'm in the process of like learning to pay what it costs, it's like God will give you little benchmarks. He's not just going to be like, all right, well, good luck, like, give everything up. You know what I mean? Sometimes he'd be asking, it feels like that, but it's not that. And it's like, you can do it. And just in those moments where God is like, I want you to pay what it costs, I would encourage you, take a walk and just let it breathe. Because sometimes God asks me to give up something and it hits in the moment. I'm freaking out. It's like, bro, go outside. Like pray, Lord, minister to my spirit and encourage me, because I need encouragement. I want to obey. Like, God is so faithful to help and to encourage and to literally hold our hand as we do something that's painful when we ask him. And half the time it's, sometimes I used to do this where I'd be like, God, fine, I'll do it. And then I like go and do it by myself. It's 10 times harder than it would have been if I would have just been like, God, can you like literally hold my hand through this? And so to the person watching, you can do it. You can change. You can grow. Do not listen to this and take away that you can't do it, because then there's no point. If you don't have hope, then there's no point. So if you don't walk away with anything else, walk away with the fact that there's hope to change and to learn how to pay the cost, because nobody off the gate is paying the cost. I'll tell you that right now. And so
that's good. Yeah, I'm so proud of you. That was nice. That was good, baby. I feel encouraged. I feel filled with hope. Well, hopefully you felt the value from this conversation and you feel ready to take on the day. Just one day at a time. Don't worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Y'all, you're strong. You're smart. We love you. And until next time, peace.